no one heard the beginning of our conversation, but I do want to say that, it's hard when you put yourself out there in the public eye because if you say one wrong thing, someone's immediately going to attack you because that's the life
Yeah,
we're living these days, right?
definitely. Yeah, oh yeah, so much so. Yeah.
I'm really interested in hearing about your upbringing because of you've become this multi-instrumentalist and performer. You know how to play so many things. Where did you grow up? And like, what was it like for you when you were a child? Did you have that around you at all?
Yeah, so I definitely grew up in a musical family. I grew up in Sharon, and I grew up with there was four siblings I have, and I was the youngest by far. So one sister's 9 years older, one's eight, one's seven, one. So they're much older than I am. So I think that informed how I view the universe from the beginning. My parents are both scientists and very kind of
Wow.
yeah, yeah. But they were very musical too. So my mom and dad, they met in a lab in Cambridge, I think. And and my dad played sax all through high school. My mom did opera and piano. And when we were little, we didn't have a lot of money, but the one thing my parents were like, you guys are all gonna have to take music lessons. So we all took piano.
I like that.
Yeah, so we had a piano in the house, and then my older siblings, with school, had to pick an instrument in like fourth grade. So we had flute, so stuff like that. And then it's funny, the thing that I think I remember the most about my childhood is my grandparents gave us this like old baby grand piano, and it was in this little room, and I used to love to sit under it when one of my sisters played. She's a great classical pianist, and I would sit under it and I would sit there and watch other people talking, but all I could hear was the music from the piano. And like my parents would have these parties, and I remember watching people talk and thinking, that's not an effective form of communication. Like it was such a strong feeling watching people like, wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, that's not important, whatever's going on with that kind of communication. And it was from that moment that music was like, I knew how important it was. And I knew it would be my form of communication. I don't think I learned to really speak in a social situation until maybe I had children and was forced to. I was always a little like, I don't know how to make small talk. I don't know how to, I always felt kind of like alien in terms of how to communicate. So I started songwriting at a very young age. And my parents, of course, wanted me to take piano lessons. And after I turned like 8, I was like, I'm done playing Beethoven cover tunes. No more, like I want
Wow.
to be a songwriter. I don't want to be told what to play. So I would still like teach myself classical pieces and butcher them. Like, like nobody wants to hear me play Furley. So
Let me get back to that for a second. There's two things. One is for people out there listening everywhere, because we have listeners all over. Sharon is like a pretty small town, I'd say,
yeah, it
near
was
the
rural
Cape,
back then.
near the
Yeah,
Cape
it's so short. It's like Canton, Stoughton, Sharon. It was,
in
it was,
Massachusetts.
yeah, it had some rural aspects to it. And it was definitely a safe, very safe town. Um, I always felt like that wasn't going to be my home for very long. I mean,
The
there were a number of reasons, like, but yeah, but Sharon's so short. Well, inland, not really
and
shore.
the other thing is, I always find really weird things to pick out. What was it like being underneath a piano and hearing the piano? What does it sound like when you're under a piano?
So much reverb, just like the wood. It's gorgeous, though. It's a beautiful
Wow.
sound. And my sister played these amazing classical pieces in high school, and I would just sit there like the little sister. Sometimes I would turn pages. But my parents always had music playing, usually classical. My dad liked big bands. And then my siblings, like my older sister loved like hard rock. And even to this day in her 60s, we'll go to Tool concerts or Foo Fighters. Like she likes hard rock. Back then it was The Who, Tom Petty. My other sister loved like Leonard Skinner, more like Southern rock. My brother liked Phil Collins and kind of like more poppy stuff. And then my other sister liked Renaissance and Kansas and kind of,
Wow.
um,
So with that plethora of music coming at you from every direction, what started sticking with you and making you interested?
I think it's funny, kind of all of it and none of it. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, I don't listen to music, and back then I would listen to it
You don't
and
have all the Renaissance albums in your
oh
record
my
collection?
God. I knew that wasn't my jam. Like I'd listen to Renaissance and be like, little too much drama. It was like opera. Like I don't need the extra drama. Like music is communicative enough. Don't try too hard to be like a lifestyle or to be I don't know. It's just too many dimensions of drama. I'm out. Like I'd much rather listen to System of a Down than like, I don't know, Kansas or something just raw and real, like, wow.
So
And
when you
so
were really young, what really grabbed you? Was there anything?
a neighbor who lived a few doors down from me was this really cool older sister, one of my friends, and she had an electric guitar
Mm.
and she loved the Clash. And I remember hearing the Clash and being like, whoa, what is that? And then she had a friend who I ended up becoming very close friends with, and she loved David Bowie. And so I started to get influence in all these ways. And then in middle school, the music director put me in a rock band as one of the three singers in this rock band. And we did some Doors covers. We did Beatles covers. We did
That's a pretty cool school you went to.
it was cool. We toured all the elementary schools, all three of them.
Wow. All three of them.
That was my first experience playing in a band. And I
Well,
loved it. I was like, this is my, but then I kind of, I never actually, I think I strummed the guitar a little and thought that's a cool instrument. But my parents were like, you're doing this. And then I chose saxophone to play. So I played sax. And then, yeah, they just kept supporting like the kids being involved in music somehow. They were a little confused why I wanted to play saxophone, but the teacher convinced them, like, yeah, yeah, I know that's a great instrument. So I switched from piano to sax.
I know you played sax a few times, not in the last one time I remember seeing you play saxophone. I can't remember who it was with, but
I
you
played
played.
with Red Chord, Andrew
Oh
Gillis's
yeah, it's going
band,
way
Red Chord.
back.
That was
Yeah.
a bit, yeah, we toured Ireland. We were like playing the Hat Show. Things were going really well. And then two of the guys' wives got jobs out of state and the band dissolved. And then I played sax for 5 years in this band Los Gatos. We played at the Burren every Sunday for 5 years until COVID came. So I was playing a lot of sax.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to get into this, but the amount of people you've sang on their records or played with or played live with is really a large amount of people. But I wanted to ask you, you said your dad played the saxophone and you picked up on that at a young age after the piano?
So yeah, my dad played saxophone and he had this saxophone. It was like I have it now. It's like from 1918, this old
Wow.
con. And I used to open the case and like look in it and just be like, I want to play that one day. And so he's like, yeah, I got to get it fixed. Someday I'll get it fixed. But he never actually played in front of me. I just heard about him playing. And my dad's super creative. That's a whole other story. Like he's very modest, so I'll never hear what he does creatively until like the Boston Globe writes about him or something. But I'm like, Dad, you built that, or you made that, or you invented that. But one thing it was he was always tinkering with things. So eventually he fixed the sax.
And he
And
was a
then
scientist.
he's a battery inventor. He helped invent the lithium ion battery
Wow.
in a garage in Hyde Park. And I didn't know that until the Boston Globe wrote about it a few years ago. And people were calling me like, your dad invented it. I think it was titled The Roots of Lithium Ion Battery is were in a garage in Hyde Park. And I was like, all I knew is my dad tinkered. He was the only one who had an electric car in the 1980s. He like built it in the
Wow.
he had a, VW Rabbit he gutted everything, put batteries in, and would plug it in at home, plug it in at Hyde Park. And yeah, and but that's a whole other story. Like,
That's
so
fascinating. Was he affiliated with one of the universities?
no, Sony or yeah, I think it was Sony came. These two Japanese guys were told, "Hey, if you want to make that battery happen that you want to power all these electronics with, you need to go see these guys over in Hyde Park." His My dad's partner went to MIT, and he was known, and my dad was, I guess, known for inventing lithium batteries. He had a few patents from when he was with GE. And these Japanese guys came and said, "Hey, we have these chemicals, but we know it should work, but we don't know how to make it work." And so my dad's like, "I can make it work," and built the container system for how the power works. And yeah, and now we have lithium ion batteries. But it was kind of like like, even though I always knew he was creative in that way, and I knew my parents always honored creativity. Like, my mom was always like going to the opera or the bell, like trying to, like, even with the little money they had, they made it work, or should ask my grandparents for help. Like, my kids need exposure to the arts, like, in whatever way. And so I grew up in that environment, which really fostered the importance of creativity. And yeah, my mom, like, she started like running the opera company. Like, they were always like trying to bring creativity up to, you know,
That
to
sounds
everyone.
like a fantastic upbringing, actually.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I mean, I had other things that happened that my parents couldn't have like protected me from, that kind of, I think, made me go deeper. I like appreciate some of the darker times in my life, that, they were great parents, but they didn't know, like, the evils that are out there now. Not
I
evils, damaged people who want to hurt people.
I think I read somewhere that you went to Berkeley, but did you go to another school too, or just the Berkeley School of Music?
No, so my mom was a professor of chemistry at Wheaton College in Norton.
Oh yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, she ultimately
I snuck, I remember sneaking into the girls' dorm there when I was very
exactly,
young.
right?
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, because it was all, I was there for the transition, but all my sisters and I went to the school because we got tuition free. So I always wanted to go to Berkeley. But what I did is I did a summer semester right after high school, and I studied jazz piano there.
So you did go to Berkeley. You did for,
Yeah, for 2 or 3 months, I went
okay.
for their high school summer semester. So I did go there. Yeah, and I did jazz piano. And again, I was like, oh, I don't think I like to be taught music. I just want to songwrite. But the great thing about going to Berkeley is I used to get off at Kenmore, and I'd walk by this club called the Rat, and it said cook wanted. And I was like, I can cook. I used to cook it for this snack bar at a sailing club. Um, and I was like, I'm gonna apply. So I went in there and applied, and they accepted my application. I was 19. They
The
never
Hoodoo
asked me.
Barbecue.
Yeah, but by then it was Terry Hanley from the Neats.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Terry. Yeah.
yeah,
Was
James.
Fry and James Ryan and those guys were all gone by then?
Yeah, well, he left and then he later came back. Like Storm and Norman was there too, but it was Terry Hanley for most of my time there. And Randall came back and did
Randall.
stuff and yeah, and I think that was like another huge turning point for my approach to music. Like, I love music, but in high school I ended up just doing sports. Like, in high school I was all about lacrosse and soccer and, weightlifting during the
You
winter.
were an athlete. Wow.
Yeah, I was an athlete. Yeah.
Let me talk about the Rat for a second because I just went to the Rat reunion show. Were you there yesterday? There were a lot of people
I-
there.
No, I was away. I just got back from the Czech Republic, so I'm all jet
Wow.
lagged. Yeah, so I've been like, like
It was
I was up
fun.
at
It
4
was a
this
really,
morning.
it was a
Yeah.
fun time, and some former Rat employees went up there and spoke. I can't really
Oh,
tell you who they were because I started going to the Rat in 1980, but I moved to LA at the end of 83. So the only time I went there for the next 20 years was when I was coming into town or whatever.
oh
But
yeah.
but at the end I was there, like I
Oh,
was back here for the end of it, 96, 97, whenever that happened. But
oh yeah.
when you were at the Rat, were you already playing at that time?
So
Like
I hadn't
working
played
there?
yet. So I of course became friends with Mr. Butch because he was always hanging
Yeah.
outside the Rat. And I used to bring him and the guys food, like sneak them food in the back parking lot of the Rat, all the houseless people. And so Butch and I became really good buddies. And back then, there were no ATMs, there were no cell phones, no Ubers. So if I stayed at the Rat too late, I couldn't get back to Alston and I didn't want to walk. So I would sit with Butch and all the guys, the Vietnam vets who, everyone
Wow.
on the street, they were my protectors. I was like the little sister and they were like the older brothers. So I would just hang out with them till the bus station opened again and then go back to Alston. So Butch said to me, "We have a gig in a couple of weeks." I'm like, "What do you mean we?" He's like, "You told me you're a musician." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." He's like, "Well, we have a gig and I have a guitar and da, da, da." He's like, I'm like, "Butch, I only know three chords." He's like, "That's all you need to know." He's like, "We're opening for this guy, Steve Albini. He has a band, Rape Man." And I'm like,
What?
it was so crazy. So
You opened for Steve
the
Albini?
Butch experience. Some people are like, I remember that gig. It was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, I opened. So I got on stage. I only played two songs or maybe three. And all I played was C, G, and D. That's all I played. And that was my first experience like playing in a band
What
again.
a first gig.
Oh yeah, it was a blast. And then I went into Mr. Music and I was looking at keyboards and Steve Sidley, who's well known in Boston, he's been at Mr. Music for years. He said, "You're gonna be a guitar player. You're not a keyboard player." I was like, "I only know a few chords." He's like, "I'm gonna sell you this white Hondo Strat for super cheap, and I have a band for you." And I'm like, "Why do people think I like play guitar in a band?" So I bought the guitar, and he hooked me up with all these players. One was Heidi Saperstein, Heidi
Oh
Lee
yeah, I
from
love Heidi.
yeah,
Yeah.
from the Snow Leopards. So we had a band called Inky Spoon in the late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, we got like we were doing great. It was a blast. And
The
I
Inky Spoons. Wow.
Inky Spoon and she taught me so much. Heidi's amazing.
Her solo record that I have a solo record she did. It's one of my favorite records.
No,
Really
she's
good.
so talented.
Yeah.
I was
Shiva
chatting with her the other
Speedway?
day.
Shiva
Yeah, Shiva
Speedway.
Speed. And I
Yeah,
used to play with Shiva Speedway before Heidi did, and we had it was called Manatee with Des and Pam. And so I moved to New York City, and then Heidi and the two of them started Shiva Speedway.
I
But
saw
Heidi,
Shiva Speedway in right when I got back into town. It was like probably 98 at the Linwood. I remember seeing them. They were an interesting band for sure.
yeah, the other guitar player, Des, has a band that's pretty great called Violet Knox. It's a lot of like electronica.
I didn't
So
know that was the same person. Wow, that's
yeah,
awesome. So,
yeah.
so what happened after the band with Heidi?
So after the band with Heidi, Inky Spoon, I started playing drums in a band with Jerry Kane Rossi,
This is why
left
I call you a
trombone.
multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like I forget. Oh, I know. I graduated college and everyone's like, "What do you want for graduation?" I was like, "Drums." I love like I think I had jammed. It was a band at Boston Rehearsal Studios or in like the South End, and it was like a band of all these women who used to jam. I remember like Talia Zadek being there and Dee Scott who played and Slaughter Shack, the original
Oh
Slaughter
yeah,
Shack.
yeah.
Yeah. And I remember getting a chance to play drums and I was like, this is my jam. Like I gotta play drums. So Jerry and Dee, who was in Slaughter Shack, they were like, yeah, you can drum. And I was like, really? And they're like, because Jerry had a rehearsal studio in her basement in Alston. So I just started like playing drums with them. It was while I was in college for like maybe like senior year, she had the drums. Then I got drums as a gift. And so we started like playing gigs around town. We played New York City at CBGB's and started doing great.
What was
Like
the
we
name
were
of that band?
Black Madonna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Jerry Kane Rossi was she used to date like Jello Biafra and when I was in New York City, she would like hook me up with these. She was pretty well known in like the underground scene of the punk rock scene. Like she had I remember one night she used to do shows around Boston, like promote these shows. She had Nick Zed and what's his name? I can't believe I just forgot his name. The guy used to like stab thing or scratch himself and Gigi Allen.
G.G. Allen and Nick Zed.
She had Gigi Allen and Nick Zed, and I was 19, maybe
Wow.
20 at this point. And this was before we were in a band, but she was like, I need your help. We're booking a show at the Primal Plunge in Alston, which was at upstairs Alston Mall place. She's like, I got Gigi Allen and Nick Zed. So I went. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And so at some point she fell off the wagon and couldn't even like because Gigi was like breaking windows in the mall. And she's like, Emily, you need to babysit Gigi. I'm too lazy.
Oh no.
So he was strangely like the nicest guy. Like off
People
stage.
say that about him. I never met him, but people say he was a nice guy, but his stage antics, oh
Oh my
my.
God. He like punched a girl that night, lit a coat on fire, smashed all the windows, like caught himself, and
Sounds
then
like a
some.
normal night for him.
So I get him in like my mom's car. I borrowed my mom's car. And I'm like driving Gigi Allen and Nick Zed. And Nick's like petting me, like, I love your braces. I had braces at that point. I was still a teenager. But anyway, so Jerry was always like, you can do this or you do this. So she was always like getting me up to shit. So that playing drums was her thing. No, you're gonna play drums for our band. So yeah, we did. I moved to New York City with Jerry and Deb chickened out. She's like, yeah, I can't move to New York City. I just can't do it.
Where did you
So
live in New York City?
what's that?
Where did you live in New York City?
I lived on East 11th between First and Second. Then I
I lived
on,
on 10th Street in between First and
you
Second.
did. I lived near that bakery on East
What
11th.
years? What years was this?
I was there 92 through 95. I was
Yeah,
in New York.
I was there 80 7, 88. That was
Oh yeah.
downtown Beirut still there when you were there? The bar downtown Beirut, I think it might have been gone. It was right
Oh
on First Avenue in the corner of First and 10th
no.
on the east side. Can't believe I
Yeah, I
remember
don't
that.
think it was there anymore. I lived then on East Fourth between A and First. And then after I got married, got married so young. I forget I was still there in New York. Lived in Brooklyn Heights. Yeah,
Wow.
that's where
I didn't I
Andy was conceived then. But I
Okay.
was playing a
This is
band. I
quite a
still play in
story
a
you
band.
have, Emily, by the way. This is you
Yeah,
think you
it's a
know
weird
about
story.
someone, but I didn't know any of this stuff. This is great. So,
Yeah. And
so
I
how long did you stay in New York and when did you come back to Massachusetts?
so I was in New York for 3 years, but really 2 years. I played in this other band there, called Screaming Venus. I was a drummer. And actually, Dana Ong tried out as guitar player. I was supposed to be the guitar player, but they couldn't find a drummer, so I ended up being the drummer. Um, Dana was there. I think we played one gig, and then for some reason the band dissolved. Then oh no, it was because my now ex-husband, when we were together then, he got an inheritance of like $10,000, and he's like, "Let's go travel the world. Let's get backpacks and hitchhike." So I was like, all right then. So we went and hitchhiked like all around Europe and Northern Africa and camped and traveled with hash traders in Morocco, like had some crazy experiences. Came back to New York City, and after a year, well, we got married, then I got pregnant pretty much right after getting married. And then he got into school at Harvard and he's like, I'm like, I guess we're going to Boston. It's a great place to have a baby. My family's all around. And he, had a job in graduate school. So he came back, and that's how I ended up back here. And then that's how I ended up starting the Emily Grogan band.
So
That's
what
where
that was that the late 90s we're in now?
No, I had Andy in 95. And
You
so,
you started playing your in as Emily Grogan in Boston in 95?
but I took a lot of time off. So I
Wow.
did, yeah, it was, and it actually was, I didn't start till it was 96 or 97. Because I remember I didn't actually record anything till I was pregnant with my second daughter, my second kid. Um, it was, I was in the studio with Ross Humphreys when I was like 8 months pregnant. And so, because I picture this picture. And so that would have been really the birth of the Emily Grogan band wasn't until like maybe 98 or 99. But I started to write songs in 96. So I started doing a little bit of songwriting in 96. In 97, Gay Hathaway or Gay Hebert became my drummer. And I was a guitar player and I wrote the songs, but I didn't sing. And so we kept looking for a singer, couldn't find anyone. My ex-husband was playing bass. And the way I met him was weird. In New York City, Jerry would hook me up with these jam sessions with like the drummer from Television. And so it would be my ex-husband on bass, me, and I don't know, I forget how he met the guy from Television. But yeah, so we had this like trio. We met a few times to jam, and I was always a guitarist. So then back in Boston, Gay was like, "You need to sing." So that's how I started singing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned we were talking about Heidi before, but Ross Humphrey was actually the one who I started booking at the Linwood when I moved to Boston and I started my management company because they convinced me that I wish I never did it, but I did it. And that's how I met Shiva Speedway through Ross Humphrey. So it's funny how it's all connected. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, I don't, if I'm jumping ahead here, just let me know, but you had a buzz with the song No Hitch because it ended up in the film Jawbreaker. Was that the
yeah.
first song that you recorded?
That was the first song I
I thought it
recorded.
was.
It was with these guys. I forget who it was.
No, I didn't know about the Jawbreaker thing until much after it happened. I knew about the Girls, Girls, Girls compilation, so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was that compilation or the movie
I
thing that happened
think it was
first.
the Girls, Girls, Girls compilation happened, and I think it was Gail, Alvin and Gail's. Um,
Curve of the Earth.
yeah, the daughter was dating Jason Priestley or
Christine
like
Elise McCarthy. So she helped you get the song in, Christine?
something, and then like Jason Priestley heard it and said, "I love this song. That song needs to be on my friend Rebecca Gayhart's movie." Got it that way, and I ended up totally like it was supposed to be. They wanted it on the soundtrack, but I never got the message. Like I'm terrible at like I said, I'm not great at communicating now with like email and text and phone. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just want to do music. So, but I remember them saying like, hey, they want you to be in the movie. And I'm like, oh, I'll sign. So I signed it. And but I never was on the soundtrack.
That
So
explains it because I knew the
yeah,
song was in the movie, but then when I looked at the listing, it wasn't on the
I
soundtrack.
totally watched that. And then what's funny is I was looking on YouTube like a few years ago,
People
and
love that song.
I saw like 30,000 people. Um, Somebody grabbed a foot, like, I don't know, screenshot and with the song, and someone said, I've been looking for that song for 30 years. Does anyone know who did this? Like, who, like, I heard it in the movie and I just want to hear more from the artist. And I was like, oh my God, 30,000 people, and people are talking about like, I'm like this mystery. And I was like, I'm so not great with like self-promotion or music business. It's like I have a blind spot where I'm like, I must do music. Like so I've had a few like really missed opportunities in life
I was,
because I'm
there must
present.
have been people at labels looking for you too. I mean, it's like because the song
Yeah.
was very impactful in the film. I went on YouTube and I was reading the comments on from one of the posts of the song, and people absolutely were going crazy over that song. This was a while ago, but I went back and revisited
Yeah.
it, and I was like, wow, it's interesting that the curve of the earth connection. Yeah, I know Christine's been on the
Yeah.
show, so I know she's, helped out other people. And Jason Priestley, who's going to say no to him, right?
Right, right. Yeah. So I was like, it was pretty cool. It was the first song I ever wrote too. It was a song I wrote about when I was hitchhiking in Morocco with my ex-husband. We got picked up by these hash traders. And it was a song that Gay was like, you need to sing that. And Gay actually was the one who was like, you're gonna tell me the story and I'm gonna underline some lines and then you sing them. So it's really like she helped bring the song out of me. Um,
It
and
was
I just,
around that time that I found out about you too, because I helped Alvin with the sequencing on that record. He asked me
oh,
to
interesting.
help him because there's like 20 songs on it, you know?
Yeah,
It was a
a
deep
lot.
record, a lot of good stuff, but you can't put everything at the
Right.
top. You have to work it. I don't remember where your track ended up, but I know you were on there. And
Yeah, I
that's when
don't
I
remember.
started seeing you around because you were
Yeah.
playing a lot at that time. Um, then you had the song on the on Dig the Boston Underground compilation, Uranium.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. Uranium, yeah.
Yeah, and that helped your buzz a little bit. And I remember some of this might be out of order, but I know that you did something with Andrea. You wrote a song that was on one of her records.
Yeah, I
Um,
wrote a song on one of her records and I was in Red Chord, so um, mainly playing saxophone, but then every once in a while I'd hop on guitar and sing and I mean we all did backup vocals. Yeah, so
I remember, it's funny how there's so many bands that you forget sometimes, but Red Chord had a really good buzz going at one
oh,
time,
such a good
ear-
buzz.
early 2000s. Um, so this leads us all up to I.O.,
Yeah.
that's your first full-length album.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit. First of all, I was wondering, what does the I.O. symbolize? And then talk about how the record came together.
So Io's moon and Jupiter, but Io is also it's like I feel I don't know if you experience this, but when you reach a certain age, it's like, what was that thing about the cow and the mythology with the Io? So it was a mythology story, and I think it was about kind of perseverance. I'd gone through like really, really challenging time. I got divorced, and there was a lot of like drama within that and trauma within that. And pretty much just felt like I had everything kind of started to explode then. And it was for me, it was totally unpredictable because I thought my life was so great, had a nice little apartment with my family, like my ex-husband, my two kids, and was living, in Somerville within walking distance. And, I thought everything was great. And then I found out all the shit where I'm like, holy shit, everything's not great.
Uh,
And I think I was also like taking care of my mother-in-law. She was living with us. She was bipolar. So there was a lot of drama within that, but also there was hidden stuff because she was the one who raised my ex-husband and there was stuff I didn't know and it was some crazy stuff. So anyways, everything like imploded and exploded and I was basically like kind of on my own and it was pretty like traumatizing. Their dad had a breakdown and anyway, so he was gone for a while. And so that time period was excruciatingly painful. I was like had to sell the house that we lived in. Actually, we had just moved to a house right before the divorce from Somerville to Arlington. And I had been a stay-at-home mom. He was like, be a stay-at-home mom. Um, and so I was like, holy shit, I've no money. He's hospitalized. I'm like, have no, so I had to like move back to Sharon. And at that point, Andy and Lily were very young, like 5 and 8. So Darren Burke recorded it and he did a great job. He
Yeah.
like just kept it so real and raw. And I think it was a very painful time. Um, and so of course I lost my bass player too now. But and things are great now. He's like
He was
awesome.
your, yeah, I remember you guys playing
Yeah.
together. I saw you play many shows. We did some things together. I think you played some of those Kirkland shows that I used to do, and I used
Yeah,
to
yeah.
put you did you I know you did some of the acoustic show. I was into this crazy
Yeah,
thing
yep,
where
I did. Yeah.
I had to do acoustic. I loved acoustic shows. I
Yeah.
was putting
I
them
remember
on.
that. The Abbey had so
Yeah.
yeah, I love the Abbey. But
Tuesday
anyway,
nights at the
yeah.
Abbey, Thursday at the Kirkland. There was one I think you played
You
too
had a
at
lot going on then. You would do
Kendall.
great work with everyone in the local scene. I remember you were just like helping everyone, lifting up everyone and trying.
Trying.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's how like I remember that you were busy um with all that stuff. So yeah, so
I think you played the Kendall Cafe show that I did when I had 19 performers and Mike Gent was the sound man. He hated
I
me.
totally remember that.
He
Yeah,
hated me. He's like,
because
"Oh,
yeah,
he's like,
that
how can you
club,
put so many people on one bill?" And I'm like, I don't know. I just wanted everyone to play.
right? And he's like, "Whoa!" Yeah, I remember that night too. And I
They,
remember like people like Josh Lederman who kind of like we all started off there. I never so when Gay Hathaway was like, "You need to sing," I was like, "Well, I got to learn how to sing in front of people first." So I started going to the open mics at the Kendall Cafe back in like '98. Like I don't so I remember like that was my that's where I started to learn to sing. And yeah, I'm just thinking back like that's crazy.
there were a lot. The Boston music scene's always been crazy, but at that time there were a million bands and
Yeah.
performers. It was nuts.
And so many
Um,
clubs, like little clubs you could
yeah.
play.
Okay, I have to ask you about this because I didn't really, I found out about this later too. Rocker Moms.
Oh yeah.
The band's called Hormone Replacement Therapy. I went and watched a few episodes. How in the
Oh
world
my
did you
God.
get in that?
So, I moved out to Share. I got divorced. My parents are like, I'm just gonna put myself on the list for like low income housing. I couldn't afford the low income housing. So my parents were like, come back. We have plenty of room. We love you guys. Come back. The schools are awesome here. We'll help you out till you get your feet on the ground again. So I go out there and the traffic lady's like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a musician, but I've been a stay-at-home mom. I think I was working at the Plow and Stars doing lunch waitressing at that point. So she's like, oh, I have a band for you. These ladies jam. I'm gonna hook you up with them. So she gives me the number and I call these women and they're so funny. They're like, hey, and I'm like, all right, I gotta meet these women. So I meet them and they're so funny. Like my stomach hurts. I'm laughing so hard. I'm like, I'll totally jam with you guys. I waitress a few days a week, but on the other days we'll jam in your basement. So two of them had just started playing. Like the drummer and the guitar player had just picked up instruments. The keyboardist was like this musical wizard. And then the bass player, I think, had played, Marion. So we start playing, and after about a few months, they're like, "Hey, we got a gig in New York City," and I'm like, "What?" Like you guys, you're good, but um, so we have the gig in New York City for in like 2 months. I forget where it was, but it was one of the bigger clubs, like in the West Village. I forget the names of the clubs there now, because I never played those kind of clubs. I was
Right.
like, played the smaller or CBGBs. So in the lead up to this 3 month gig, these women are unbelievable. They polish themselves up to be real musicians in 3 months. I'm like, holy shit, we're actually doing it. And we play the gig, and there's a New York TV production company, and they're like, we're going to do a show on you. We're going to call it a lifestyle documentary, and we're going to call it Rocker Moms. So they're like, we're going to come to your town in a couple of weeks and interview you. So they come interview you, but what we realize is it's a reality show they want. And they're like, so any of you lesbians? And we're like, no, these three are married, and us two definitely aren't lesbians, you know? So they end up selling the concept to a Canadian TV production company, Tricon Films, and they're like psyched, and we're like, listen, you're not going to make any of us like sleep with each other or cheat on the husband or like, and they're like, no, we just want you as you are. And so it still was like they would warp stuff. Like they'd come to the plow to see me waitressing, and they'd then take a screenshot of some other person with like black peeling nail polish and pretend it was mine, and like so, but we did this TV show, and it played primetime, 8 p.m., like up in Canada, and friends would come back from Canada and be like, you are on the TV in the bar. I saw your kid playing Blackbird in my hotel room on a TV. Like they followed us around for a year. It was kind of
Yeah, I
crazy.
remember there's a big story, I think, in the Globe or something. That's how I had heard about it.
Yeah,
I
we were in
guess
like the National Enquirer, the Globe. We were on Chronicle. We did like Kiss 108. And yeah, it was kind of crazy times. And at the same time, I was like kind of like doing this other tour thing as a backup vocalist with Mike Gordon from Fish.
you
And that's
were?
my life. Yeah, it was crazy. I
Wow.
yeah, I was dating a guy who played guitar with him, and he was like, I really like your voice. And we're going down to Costa Rica. And I'm like, oh, who's going? He's like, Bill Kreutzmann, me, Oteil Burbridge, and Scott, my now ex-boyfriend, Scott Morosky. He was the first guy I dated after I had gotten divorced. So we went toured like went down to Costa Rica, played some gigs, and we toured the West Coast like a year later. And yeah, it was pretty. Oh, Kitty! I love cats so much.
I knew he was going to make an appearance. I just wanted he
Yay!
jumped up on the bed.
Kitty!
That's amazing that you're with all those guys. Kreutzmann from the Grateful Dead you're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Wow.
hung out for like 2 weeks down in Costa Rica in Mike Gordon's dad's house. And yeah, it was so fun and really great, super kind people, very modest, like, you would not say they were celebrity like in any way, like not at all super nice, like really.
There is so much in this Emily Grogan show. Let me tell okay, I got another topic for you because I tried to find something online or anywhere when Linda came on my show, and I couldn't find Angeline. Did a record ever come out on High and
Ah,
Dry?
we did a
Wh-
great record where
Where is it? How can you find it? It's not on Bandcamp.
like, do
It's
I have one of the CDs
nowhere.
around there?
So
Here
they put a
again, like
CD up, but it never came out
it was
digitally.
on Morphine's label.
Yeah, High and Dry, but was it
Yeah,
digitally available? Can you find it on Spotify and stuff?
I don't think so. Maybe Linda's as bad as I am at no,
She
she's
didn't know
fucking great.
either. She didn't
She's
know
so
either.
good at self-promotion. But yeah, I'm just not good with that stuff. I'm
But
like,
I
I don't
remember Angeline. You guys were like they called you a folk rock band, but it was pretty
yeah.
commercial in some ways. You guys were in the Rumble.
Yeah, we did the Rumble. It was my first Rumble and my last Rumble. I haven't done a Rumble at all.
Emily Grogan band never played the Rumble. Wow.
Maybe it's time to.
I saw Oedipus from BCN at the Rat reunion. Maybe I can get BCN to come back, you know?
Yeah,
I don't think
do the
so.
full. Well, Angel was still running the Rumble. I was at the Rumble at Sonia's.
Yeah, I know I'm joking. I was talking about
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
original
to get the
because
BCN.
you
Yeah.
were in the BCN Rumble, right?
Yeah, I was in the
Angeline?
BCN
Yeah,
Rumble.
I
Yeah, the
thought
middle.
so.
Yeah.
Um, okay, this is an important part of the interview because several people came up to me that saw your performance of Weather Vane at the Ducky Carlisle tribute.
Oh
And
yeah.
I know that you worked with Ducky, obviously, because you were there.
Yeah.
And that record is a really good record, At Sea. And that's your second album.
That's actually
Um,
my third album.
third,
So, oh, actually,
I missed one of your albums and I apologize for that.
No, because I'm bad at so
I
this
recognize that
song.
cover.
This was my first album. Ross Humphreys recorded it for
Do you
me.
know,
It was at New Alliance way back in like 90 something.
I apologize for going right over that record. I
That's
don't
all
know
right.
how I missed that.
And
It was
yeah,
99. I look online for stuff and I couldn't find the only two albums I could find were IO and At Sea on Discogs is where I usually
maybe I'll get Falsometer up there.
I would put everything on Bandcamp. I don't know if you've done that yet, but
Yeah, I was doing DistroKid. Um I like released a song from a fourth album I did that I never released recently. Um there's
it's time
my
for a box set. Time to release the box
yeah,
set.
yeah.
Emily
The
Grogan box set.
best of Emily Grogan.
Well, anyways, I wanted to talk about at Sea because I know you got nominated for Best Female Vocalist for the Boston Music Awards after that record came out. And what was it like working with Ducky Carlisle? Because I've heard so many stories about
He's
Ducky.
awesome. I love him, but I'm very forgiving. I love characters. I love people who are just unapologetically themselves, no matter how rude or crazy. He wasn't rude, but I love people who are just like brutally honest. So I loved hanging out with Ducky. He just was cracked me up. I mean, we did 13 songs. I was there for months. Like I was on One Way Productions back then. I don't
Brooks Whalen, yeah,
yeah. Yeah, shout out to Brooks. Yeah. Yeah, he helped with both IO and at sea,
right.
which wouldn't have been possible. And Ducky's just he had so many genius moments. He was great at getting warm, raw sound. He helped me vocally, like, zero vocal effects. He liked just raw vocals through the mic, like, no like not to alter it very much at all. And so it made me a better singer working with him because I finally listened to myself singing instead of just was like, I'm on key and I'm saying words. I actually like understood I could be more present with my instruments.
You assembled a great group of people to work on that record too. You had a
Yeah.
ton of people.
Yeah.
Um, well, so when that record came out, did you feel like a big buzz going around town?
There was a buzz going, but I don't know, I guess I'm a little odd in that I kind of, or maybe it's not odd, maybe it's trauma. I kind of block out my head's in the clouds a little bit, maybe blocking out like the world or something, because I don't listen or I don't hear or I'm just happy to be doing music and people say what they want. I remember one time at the Abbey, someone's like in front of me and says, I don't know if I really like that last band. And his girlfriend's like elbowing him and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, it's all good. I don't like olives. Like, so
You
you don't
don't?
like, no, I'm like, so whatever. You didn't like me. I'm not going to personalize it or not like you or feel like upset about it. Like olives don't get mad that I don't like them. Like, I don't know.
Your personality explains a lot to me why you didn't go further because you weren't one of these people who are like, I want to be a rock star and I'm going to go as far as I can get. That's never was your attitude, was it?
Yeah. No, I think there was like one time where I was really excited to like it was like I was looking at the Village Voice and there was like female guitars wanted. So I answered the ad. I go into this hotel room and it's Michael Schenker from the Scorpions.
Wow.
And he's like, all right, show me your guitar skills. And so I show him
You can't do a German accent?
I cannot. Like, not nine. So it was crazy because I think at that point, because I was living in New York City, I was like waitressing or temping. I think because I felt desperate in a way of like, when you're 24, you don't know how young you are. And I'm like, oh, I'm 24, I'm not doing anything with my life. And and then I step into this hotel room and it's Michael Schenker. So I got this visions of grandeur, like, oh my God, he says we're going to tour Japan. So he's like, I really like your guitar skills, da da da. And come back tomorrow. Still have like 10 other people today. So the manager's like, I'll call you, you know. So I get the call back and she's like, Michael wants you as he had this idea to get a female band of musicians. So she has me come back and he's like, he just wants to get to know you because you're going to be on tour for a while. So we go to dinner and he's asking me all these questions. And he's like, no drugs, no sex. And I'm like, sounds like what is this, a cult? Like, so then he's like, I want to, let's do some more like writing. And so, in those few days, I was like, I'm going to tour Japan with Michael Schenker. And then we meet again and and I was like, I'm sorry, I like every once in a while I get migraines. He's like, let me rub your back. I was like, ah. And so he starts like rubbing my back and I'm like, what happened to the no sex part of the tour? Like, and I was like, whoa, but then I was like, no, I have a boyfriend. No, no, I have a boyfriend. And so I'm like, I gotta go now. And I leave and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, did he even want me to be his guitar player? So I get home and a month later, his manager calls and is like, so the tour is ready and he really wants you there. And I was like, at that point, I was like in love with my, boyfriend. And my boyfriend's like, if you go on that tour, I won't be there back, when you come back. And I was like, yeah, I can't do the tour. But that was the
Wow.
one time that I really had visions of like, I'm going to be famous touring Japan with Michael Schenker. And then it totally bombed. I was like, oh. And he wasn't like aggressive, he thought he was probably, back then in the early 90s or mid 90s, it was like, oh, I'll give her a nice massage and maybe I just reach around. Like, no, 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 no. Like, so I got out of there. I was like, my dreams were dashed. And then I think once I had kids, I didn't really like, I went on tour with Mike Gordon. We played, like, I don't know, what was it, some big festivals. And I was like, wow, I'm singing to 40,000 people. This is pretty weird.
I'm still trying to get my jaw to undrop from that Michael Schenker story. Sorry, that was wow. You turned down Michael
Yeah,
Schenker. That's something.
I know. I'm not a
Wow.
cheater. I love my boyfriend. I'm not a cheater.
So that's impressive. I'll tell you. That
Yeah.
you're out there now and you're still doing it. And I think you play with Larry Dersh, right?
Yeah, Larry's awesome. We've been playing
Great
together
drummer.
for decades. Like now it's been decades. And it's funny. I kind of like got into playing sax and kind of put my band a little in the corner. And then something happened like not 8 or 9 years ago. I like really hit rock bottom. Like I've had these little traumas all along, like like the Me Too movement talks about. I had like several of those. So then I woke up one morning. I was in a relationship with this guy. I was just shiny on the outside, not so great with
Mm.
women and intimate. And I remember I was like, I think had to like lock myself in the bathroom and like was just sitting there crying. I'm like, what has become of you? Like you have potential to help the world, to do things, to shape life, like what are you doing? You're like you're so beaten down. You haven't dealt with your shit, Emily. And it was like the best gift in that moment was hitting that rock bottom because there was something about that moment where it was like I had to choose like, do you want to die? Do you want to live? Like, and if you're gonna live, like if you choose life. Stop distracting yourself with like dramas. Like I kept thinking it was always like about the other person doing something to me. And I realized like, wow, my whole childhood was like that. Being the youngest in a big family, you're dragged around. Then you have these moments when you're like, some teenage boy being like, you're gonna do this with me. And I'm like 11. And then you're like, so I was so used to like larger than me energy either controlling me or putting me down or holding me down or telling me what I was going to do that I think I like reached a breaking point, which was great. And I was like, fuck that shit. Like it's time to grow up. So I picked myself up, I left the guy, I like decided I'm going to start making music work again. And so people, I know it's it must be something that's shifted because I notice when I play now, like people would always say, good job, good job. People now will say, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And I'm like, oh, I think my confidence was what I needed to get my statement out there, where the music is affecting people. And as a songwriter and as that like little girl under the piano who was just like, people aren't communicating clearly. People can't feel. No one's able to really feel each other because they're using their mouths. Like for me, music is the ultimate communicator. And I wasn't delivering my music with um like letting people know like this is like I don't know how to describe it. Like I feel like good music is put across in a way where it's people's ability to recognize the truth in themselves by hearing truth in music. And it's almost as like when I look back at my life, it sounds all like woo-woo, but I'm like, I think I was born needing to transmit whatever the human experience is so that people can feel somebody hears them. And so I just feel like now when people come up to me and say, holy shit, I'm like, wow, it's not just about the music. It's about delivering it with my voice in a way that's honest and authentic and not like, poor little me, I'm singing my songs up here. That's like, hey, I have something to tell you all. I feel compelled. I have no idea why. That's the magical life. I don't care if you like it or not. I don't need to be heard, but something compels me to deliver this message. I hope it helps you. Like, I hope you get moved by it. I hope you can snap out of all the bullshit that surrounds all of us because the honesty that's coming through me, I think, is your truth too. Like that kind of magic. Because I mean, what moves people, like, I don't know. I think poetry are words that with the right combination has that magic where you can resonate someone to remember like the truth of life, not all the cultural or familial bullshit that we all get beaten down with. And so I just like lately I've been feeling that and then getting the response back. Like we hear my truth and your truth and thank you. So
That was really beautiful. A lot of people, like I mentioned Weather Vane, in your performance not too long ago at Ducky's show. I went on YouTube and I listened to it. I've listened to it a few times since then. It's your big song on not YouTube, Spotify. It's your big song,
oh
most
yeah.
plays. A lot of people listen to it. And I think that your attitude is fantastic about how you went through this transformation. It's just great. Do you have a lot of stuff going on in the future now? And are you going to
Yeah,
record? Are
so
you
I'm
going to
not Yeah, I have a lot of gigs. I'm not, again, not so great with my website. I keep my website going, but it's not updated. I have like 5 or 6 gigs coming up. Um, I mainly play the plow because I don't really try to get gigs. I just kind of get given gigs. So
Plowing Stars in Cambridge,
yeah, Clown
Massachusetts?
Stars in Cambridge. And I'm playing a barn party in Westminster, Joe Serio. He's got this great barn, I think with Dana Colley and
Oh, that's
uh,
what I wanted to ask you
yeah,
before. Did you ever show that 1918 saxophone to Dana?
I did. I took one lesson with him like 4 or 5 years ago, and he was like, "That's really cool." The thing that he loved the most with the mouthpiece, he's like, "Do you understand? That's a kick-ass mouthpiece." It was like an old rubber, like you can't get them anymore, kind of.
If anyone would know, it's him.
Yeah, yeah. He thought it was cool, old silver plated. Um, so. yeah, so other I so I recorded an album like 7 or 8 years ago, and I never like fully released it. I did a pledge music campaign, and it's like and Brian Charles did it, and he's amazing.
Hmm.
He's so talented, and yeah, such a great engineer producer. But I never released it. I think that was during the time where I was like I melted into the ground. I don't know. And so a lot of the tunes from that time, I feel like I didn't do them justice. So I never released it. I did release the one song, Join Together,
Oh yeah,
which I
yeah,
did
I
a
did see.
video.
I heard that
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
And I had my other daughter, Lily, did a video for me and I released it as a video. Um, but I have nothing like I'm like a guitar, piano, or private instrument teacher. And I live in Boston, so I'm not flush with money to walk into a studio. So I've been doing a little bit here. I know you can see I have like little home studio
that's
that I
cool.
have fun. Yeah. And I arrange all my music before I go into the studio. Like with Brian, I pretty much did everything I could do at home. Anything that needed a good mic or good amp, I re-recorded at his place. But I try and have it all ready.
That's how they do it now.
Yeah. So I'd like to record. So if anybody wants to give me money to record, I welcome it.
Except for Michael Schenker.
Right?
Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome.
Right.